Hey everyone. Today I want to talk a little bit about inaction, the dynamic of inaction, and what inaction actually implies when we read it in scriptures, or we read it in different modes of thought, different texts that have been passed down to us. What inaction actually means. And more specifically, I want to talk about it in the sense of Eastern traditions, in relation to Eastern traditions like Buddhism and Taoism specifically. I have personally read the Tao Te Ching a lot of times, more times than I can count, and I have really gone into that world, that Buddhist and Taoist, that realm of thinking, of being, and so and the term inaction comes up a lot. It does come up a lot, and what I've come to understand about this is not only does it not mean literally taking no action, not only does it not mean doing nothing in the sense that most of us think, right? Not only does it not mean that, but most people get it wrong. Most people generally do think that when they see inaction, when they see a book or a piece of writing like the Tao Te Ching talking about not taking action, inaction, doing nothing, they take it literally. They take it like, you know, oh, I'm not going to do anything at all. Like I'm just going to just accept everything and just, kind of allow just life to play out how it's going to play out. I don't need to do anything, right? No, take no action, right? And I want to give a few examples of what I mean when I say this. I'm sure most of you listening to this are familiar with this concept and have read these books or these different writings. But I want to read a couple specifically, and I'm not gonna interpret the whole entire passage, but I just want to read this to talk about specifically non-action or the idea of inaction. This is from the Tao Te Ching, translated by Stephen Addis and Stanley Lombardo. Recognize chapter 2 or passage 2. Recognize beauty and ugliness is born. Recognize good and evil is born. Is and isn't produce each other. Hard depends on easy, long is tested by short, high is determined by low, sound is harmonized by voice, after is followed by before. Therefore, the sage is devoted to non-action, moves without teaching, creates 10,000 things without instruction, lives but does not own, acts but does not presume, accomplishes without taking credit. When no credit is taken, accomplishment endures. And like I said, I'm not going to get into what all of that means. Maybe for future videos, I'll start getting into this more because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand these brilliant messages that are coming through this book in particular, or like the Bible or anything like that. Really, people don't really understand these things. They need to. It's very important. Um, but when he says, or when it says, therefore, the sage is devoted to non-action. And again, this is just this particular, I've read a bunch of different translations. This is one of my favorite translations. But when it says, moves without teaching, creates 10 things without instruction, it doesn't mean just doing nothing, like literally doing nothing. And one more before I start getting into this. One of the most classic examples in John 14:10, I think it is, and where it's stated, the words that I speak to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does the works or doeth the works. And there's tons of different translations for that as well. John 14:10, the Bible. Now, you see, it's talking about the same thing there, right? Where it's not literally, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. No, it's the ego's not doing anything. Like the little me, the self, the little self, the I is not doing anything of myself. God, what I am, the ultimate reality, infinite consciousness, universal mind, what I am beyond the flesh, right? I am that I am is flowing through me fluently. That's what it means by non-action. I don't do anything of myself. The Lord within me, the Father, God, he doeth the works. So just getting out of my own way to allow that energy to flow, to allow that expression to fulfill itself, right? To allow that flow of life to flow through me without obstruction, without me blocking up the gates with this, monkey mind, the ego, and all these different things that get in the way, the conditioning, the beliefs, my ideas about reality, my identities, the labels, the masks, the titles, all of it, attachments, things of that nature. And I'm not going to get into all those different dynamics right now, but this idea of inaction, this idea of just accept everything how it is and don't do anything and don't take action to transform your life and to manifest the reality that you want to see manifested in your life, right? To start actually doing that work, to watch your thoughts, to become aware of your thoughts, because the thoughts that you feed ultimately lead to manifestations in your reality, right? So you have to, that watchfulness is an action in and of itself, right? That watchfulness, that attention is on some level an action, right? I mean, you can say, well, it's the cessation of all action, really, right? But at the same time, you can see where I'm coming from with this, where it's like I have to take the action of not doing anything, right? Like not doing anything is, yes, you can look at it as non-action, but at the same time, it's an action in and of itself, right? There's an active component to it. I hope you kind of see where I'm coming from with this. I know it can be a lot to grasp. So we have to, that's why I stress the importance of watching ourselves. That's why I stress the importance of awareness of the full spectrum of being, our thoughts, our behaviors, the way we talk, the way we act, the way we behave, the way we dress, the way we think, these patterns. We have to start picking up on the patterns and the habits and all the things so we can start to dissolve and do away with all the programs that are not serving us anymore. The beliefs, watching how we react to situations, watching how we think in general, watching that trend so we can start purging out those those modalities of thought, those different habits of thinking, and then almost reinstall good programs, right? Like reinstalling good knowledge, like knowledge that's going to transform monumentally our lives. And it's going to help bring us back into balance, right? Bring us into this state of equilibrium, and then help teach other people how to purge those programs out of their minds, right? So you're not taking action. It's not a state of non-action in that sense. It's a very active process, but the ego, which is the you, the self, the little self. I'm not talking about the infinite self, the self that's all, that connects us to all things. There's just one self, which is all, capital S self. But I say the lowercase s self is the individual me. I'm just little me, individual. I just got to make it in life, and I got to stomp on people's faces, and I got to make a bunch of money, and I got to do these things. I got to get the kids to school. That's not who you are. People identify as that. And so they're blocking the flow of their true self. They're blocking that natural flow of what they actually are, that creative energy. So being in that state of non-action is just letting go and allowing that flow to come naturally when it needs to come, just allowing it to happen. And the ego comes and gets involved and starts saying, well, why are you doing that? Don't do that. Don't do this. You're not going to make money. You're not going to do that. You're not going to be liked. You're not going to blah, blah, blah. Not feeding that aspect of us, not feeding it, not giving it attention, because all the ego wants is attention. All it wants is your energy. It wants you to, the ego cannot comprehend or see value in the present moment. It can't. The ego cannot live in the present moment. It's either in the future or in the past, in all the time. It's in time in general. The ego is in time. Thought operates in time. Thought cannot be present. That's why you have to get past thought. You have to get past that conscious mind, the ego, to impress your subconscious mind with programs, I won't even say programs, with thoughts, with ideas, with concepts that you want to see come into fruition in your reality. And that's stepping into the art of prayer, true prayer, and then meditation. And why meditation is so important, because meditation is designed to to reach past the conscious mind, to reach past the ego, and to, quite frankly, use the ego to impress the subconscious mind, to create the reality that you want to see, to create the reality that you're going to stop at nothing to manifest. And that's the art of non-action. Just saying, I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust that universal energy, God, whatever you want to call it, to flow through me fluently. I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to allow it to guide me in my eating habits, in the way I think, in the way I carry myself in this world. I'm going to allow that Father that dwells within me to guide me along my journey, to guide the ego, to use the ego, to shuttle its power through the ego. And when the ego starts throwing fits and saying, I don't like this, or, why are you doing that? Or why are you making another video, man? And no one's listening, whatever it is, just throwing all these tantrums. I don't want to eat that. It doesn't taste good. I want a brownie, like whatever it is. And most people can relate to this. Most people can see where I'm coming from. I mean, just try sitting, if you haven't meditated a lot in your life, just try sitting in silence for 5 minutes and tell me how unruly the ego can be, the conscious mind, that process just wants to keep going. I gotta brush my teeth. I gotta do this. Oh, what time is it? Oh, I gotta, right? And it reminds me of the movie Revolver. If you haven't watched that movie, man, it's so good. It does such a good job at depicting the ego and revealing it just puts it right in your face. It's incredible. It's a masterpiece. It's truly a masterpiece. Anyways, we have to allow that force to flow through us fluently as best as we can. And that takes watchfulness. That takes awareness. That takes getting out of our own ways, so to speak, right? For lack of better terms, getting out of our own way. That's what it actually means. So when you hear and when we talk about inaction, when you hear about it, when you read the Tao Te Ching or these Buddhist texts or whatever, I know it's in many ancient traditions. It's in pretty much all ancient traditions, really. When you read about this is what it actually means, right? I don't do anything of myself. Lawrence doesn't do anything of himself in the sense of the physical Lawrence being, the human being Lawrence. But God, he doeth the works. He expresses through this vessel. I won't say he, she, God, that universal energy, spirit, it flows through this vessel fluently. That's what it means. That's what all these ideas, the concept of non-action actually means. And it's been so chopped up and skewed and inverted and, in the New Age movement, things like that. People just, non-action. It says don't take action. It says, just sit around and just say, everything's great, just whatever. Just let it all play out. Right? No, that can't be further from the truth. There's a part that you're here to play, right? And so you have to allow that force to flow through you. You don't stop it up by saying, I just do nothing. That's it. Now you're creating a condition. Now you're impressing a condition in your mind, in your subconscious mind, that says, I'm here to do nothing. I'm here to just be happy in my own life and to seek pleasure and to, just whatever it is, collect crystals. And so you in the subconscious mind, it creates the conditions in your reality that you impress into it. So it's going to, in the ego as well. The ego follows suit. It's like a shapeshifter. The ego shapeshifts into whatever trend or whatever you're following, whatever path you're following. It's going to come in with the guru's robes on, dressed all exactly how you want to be dressed. Or if you're, in another phase of your life, whatever, it's going to come into your life. It's going to be dressed up like, whatever you want it to be dressed up as. It's going to be camouflaged. It's going to be very hard to see. And it sneaks in and it weasels itself in and it tries to tell you you're either, doing nothing, you're worthless or whatever, and tries to derive fear from you. It's just energy. Or if you're not having it, it'll come in and try to be your best friend and it's still trying to drive energy from you. That's just kind of what the ego does. It just wants attention. It's like It's like there to just distract you, right? And it's just gotten so unruly and untamed and just kind of just let loose on its own. And we need to bring it back in its place. We need to use it. We need to watch it, allow it. It throws its tantrums and it does its thing. Watch it, watch it, watch it with the keen awareness. It shuts up. I use it. I use it. Even when it's throwing its tantrums, I'm still using it. I'm not going to feed its tantrums. I'm not going to feed all of its unruliness and its deceptions and its all the things it wants me to get hooked by, all the things that it wants me to get engaged with, right? No, no. Like in Revolver, the movie Revolver, he gets to that point where he's just watching it. He's just sitting there in the elevator, just watching. And it's doing everything it can to get its attention. It's doing everything it can to convince Mr. Green in that elevator, to convince him that he needs that ego. He needs it. I need you. You need me. You need me. I'm here for you. What are you going to do without me? And you know what? To an extent, yeah, that's true. You do need it. That the ego you cease to be. My name is Lawrence Wasson. That's the ego, right? But I'm using it because I can see through the identification. I know I'm not my name. I know I'm not my body. I understand I'm no title or label or whatever I can attach to myself. I'm none of those things. I'm none of the things. I'm not the books that I have. I'm not the water I'm not anything. I'm not the phone that I use. I'm not the computer that I use. I'm not my job. I'm not my whatever. I'm not my role, right? But I can say certain things and I can use certain words to describe what I'm doing here, describe the processes that I go through in my life, while at the same time understanding that I'm not those things. So I'm no longer hypnotized by those concepts, those words, those identities. I transcend identification while using them as a tool. And yes, one can do this. One can do this. It's tricky. It's tricky, but one can do this. Now, I know I kind of stepped from non-action into egoic, thought processes and just the ego in general. It's all related. It's all very related. It's all very important to talk about. I don't think a lot of people have a lot of things to say about this, but this is from my standpoint, from what I've observed and from what I've come to through all the years, from me watching my own ego, watching this aspect of myself, purging my programs, purging all those things out of my subconscious and unconscious mind, doing dream work, going through those processes myself, and then reading the freaking Tao Te Ching over and over again, and reading books like it, like the teachings of Wu Sin. If you haven't looked at Wu Sin's teachings, Wu Sin literally translates to no mind. Wu Sin, spelled WU space HSIN. I think he has like 5 or 6 volumes. You haven't read his stuff. It's incredible work. He talks about non-action all the time. And when I first ever opened my eyes, the first few years, I didn't really understand what it meant. I did. I fell into that cul-de-sac of thought, that Ouroboros thinking pattern of, oh, it's just non-action. You just don't do anything, right? Oh, the world is falling apart, man. I mean, there's corruption, there's darkness, there's a control system. What is all this? I got to do something about this. And then the teachings come in and say, non-action, don't do anything. You don't got to do anything, man. Just sit back and relax, eat some popcorn, chill out, But there's this force inside of me. There's this energy that wants me to do something. There's this energy that wants me to reach people and to communicate and to connect. What's that then? Well, I don't really know. The teachings, they say don't take action. They say don't take action. The gurus are saying it too. Oh, I guess I just don't do it. I was there for at least a year. I was there. But quite frankly, I was still connecting and I was still talking about this stuff. But like I was in that mindset until the past, few years that I realized, oh shit, I'm just allowing that my infinite expression, infinite being. I know I got a lot of names for this, it, God, on, whatever you want to call it. I have a lot of names for it, right? But I'm just allowing this energy to flow through me, out of me. It's just expressing itself. I'm just watching it happen. I'm just watching the show. I'm just watching it play out. You know, my videos, these videos, what they make themselves, but at the same time, I make them, but they make themselves. It's this paradox. It's very hard to grasp and grapple with. You can't grapple with it, you'll be defeated. The ego can't grasp that. You know, it can't. Your capacities are limited in this area. You are this infinitely expansive being that the capacities, the faculties that we have can't grasp. It can't grasp that. All we can do is get out of the way and allow it to flow. And again, that's why I think I brought this up earlier about eating habits is we got to eat the right foods. We got to eat putting the right fuel into our bodies, because that's going to ultimately lead to the fluency of your form, the fluency of your being to express your gifts. If you're filling it with junk all the time and not being conscious of what you're putting into your body, not only physically, but psychologically with your attention, right? What are you paying attention to? Like money, it's like your spiritual currency, your attention and your time. How are you spending your time? Like spending money? How are you spending your time? And what are you paying attention to in every moment? Because that's ultimately what gets impressed into your mind, and ultimately that is what gets outputted into your reality, right? Where are you spending your most time? Who are you hanging out with? What are you doing with your life? Are you taking in real knowledge? Are you watching your thoughts? Are you meditating? Are you working on yourself, for lack of better terms? Are you coming back to yourself, rather? Better put, are you coming back to what you are? Are you removing the programs? Are you removing what doesn't belong? The dirt that we've added on top of us, our true self, the layer of wall between us, our egos and our higher self, our true self. Are you doing that? Or are you just drinking beer, watching football, watching Netflix, working your 40-hour, 50-hour a week dead-end job that you hate, staying in toxic relationships, feeding toxic, thought patterns, stuck in habits, stuck in beliefs, eating terrible, GMO and just terrible foods? Because that's ultimately going to be the output. What you express, what you put in is what you're going to express inevitably. That's just how it works. So back to the food, it's so important what we're intaking into our bodies. As fluently as possible, our bodies need to be. That's why exercising is so important, because our body has to move. It was built to move. Our bodies were built to move. We have 2 legs, we have 2 arms. We need to be moving our bodies regularly. If we're not, we get blocked up. There's pockets of distortion, of imbalance that happen in our bodies, and that blocks the flow of chi, right? That blocks the flow of energy in our bodies, and that keeps us from expressing ourselves as fluently as possible. And not only is exercising so important, but sweating. That's our skin is the largest organ in the body. It needs to sweat. It needs to excrete, like regularly, input, output. Our body needs to be doing that constantly, doing in and out. And I said that in previous videos about like speaking, sharing our gifts, expressing ourselves, sharing our stories. That's why it's so important, because the more knowledge we're taking in, the more we need to be expressing the things that we're learning, expressing the things that we're growing through, expressing our downfall or our pitfalls, expressing the processes that we're going through. There has to be that flow, that ebb and that flow. There has to be that natural rise and fall. If not, if you're just input, for instance, if you're just eating, and you're not exercising, you're not moving your body regularly, at least walking 30 minutes a day, intentionally, or something, Tai Chi, something, if you're not moving your body, letting that chi flow, stretching, then you're going to get blocked up. It's the same thing with knowledge. It's the same thing with your mind. If you just input all day, you're not expressing it, you're not talking about it, you're not getting it out, you're going to get some type of block. There's going to be some type of block that takes place. And that usually leads to like some type of depression. It does. Anxiety, nervousness. It happened to me. If I don't, and it still happens to me if I don't express myself, if I don't talk, if I get into those modes where I'm just like, absorbing knowledge for a month straight and not saying anything about it, I do get into a dark place. I get into a dark headspace because I have to be sharing what I'm learning. It's almost like a freaking natural law. It's like so important to do that. It's so important to be outputting, to be transmitting the things that I'm going through and the things that I'm, learning and coming to understand. So tying this all back to non-action, all these things that I'm talking about here, and I have so much more to say about this, but all these things that I'm talking about here have everything to do with non-action. Although I'm taking all these actions, right? I'm eating, I'm exercising, I'm reading, I'm absorbing knowledge, I'm expressing myself, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But really, if you look at it, if you're living in alignment with that force, with that energy, with what you are, you're just allowing it to flow. You're just allowing it to flow. So really, you're not doing anything, You're not really doing anything. For example, if you're expressing a stream of consciousness, if you're talking about something juicy, something that you're really passionate about, whatever it is, talking about the mind, talking about philosophy, talking about, caring for animals, whatever it is you're very passionate about, you're just releasing that stream of consciousness. You get in that flow. I'm sure most of you can relate in some regard. That is God flowing out of you, through you, that getting in that flow state, just allowing it to happen. And you're just watching it happen. You're just the observer. You're just the stillness, in the background, watching it. So it's like you think you're doing all these things, like I'm doing this, I'm exercising, I'm making videos, I'm doing all these things. But really, that's my version of being. You see? That's me being. That's allowing life to live me. That's just allowing life. Period. No more needs to be said. That's just life. There it is. If you haven't noticed, life is constantly moving towards a state of equilibrium and balance. When you get out of the way, that's where it goes. Observe nature. Go watch nature, and you'll see this. You go talk to anybody that has truly awakened and opened their eyes, and now the light switch is on, and now they're transforming their reality, right? They are almost inevitably, everybody is moving towards this state, right? Moving towards the state of balance, moving towards the state of equilibrium with their environment, equilibrium within, not only within themselves, but because inevitably the outer, right? You moving towards equilibrium on the outside is a natural derivative of you living in balance and harmony within, internally. The more you live in balance internally, the more you're going to express balance. I said in balance, not imbalance. The more you live in a state of balance internally, you will be expressing balance. You're going to be balancing your environment. You're going to be bringing your environment into a state of balance, which typically just is a removal process, really. You're just removing a bunch of things just to allow life to just live, to breathe. Hey, life, do your thing. What there's an intelligence to life that brings it back to balance naturally, that brings it back to order naturally. We have to get out of the way and allow that force to live through us. And that's what non-action means. allowing what you are, your true self, to express itself fluently without obstruction as best as possible through the vessel that you're in.